Kia ora, and welcome to Kiwis on Tour Episode 2. Today, we're going from Kaiapoi to Q School and all the way to the Ladies European Tour. We're going to be speaking with a USC Trojan and national representative with an impressive amateur record who is now lighting up the fairways of Europe. We'll be talking the early days of Canterbury, life in the college, insane travel schedules in Europe, and what's next for one of the fiercest competitors wearing the fern worldwide. This is Kiwis on Tour, Episode 2 with Amelia Garvey. Amelia, thank you so much for joining us and taking some time out of your evening in what has been a very busy period for you. How are things up in the north and how's that weather been treating you?
Yeah, it's been good, thank you. I've been in the UK for the past 3 weeks now, so it's kind of been nice to be in sort of one spot for a little bit. Just been driving in between the last few events, so yeah, I think this year's been pretty crazy. So to be here in the UK and just kind of feel like I've based myself here a little bit this year has been really nice.
And being in the UK must be sort of like a bit of a comfort for you with your English roots. You moved from Manchester when you're about 5 years old. Do you still have plenty of family up those ways that you can call on and sort of have a little taste of home?
Yeah, I think I've been really lucky to be able to play the European tour, being from New Zealand, but also have a lot of family in England still. So I've just been living with my auntie and uncle and cousin this year, kind of in the off weeks, which has been really nice. So yeah, it's a home away from home for me, and I know that the European tour would be a lot tougher if I didn't have that. So it's definitely eased me into it a lot more.
Awesome. And so yeah, moving to Christchurch from Manchester, pretty big move, particularly early on in your life. When was it that you started to pick up golf? And do you remember sort of what it was that first got you in and what got you excited about it?
Yeah, I think I was 6 when I started, so I did start when I was in New Zealand. I was just a really sporty tomboy growing up, so I was playing every sport I possibly could, and my dad just bought me a plastic set of little golf clubs for, I think it was my 6th birthday. And one day he was uh, standing in the living room and I was out in the back garden on my own and he saw me pick them up and swing it and there was no one around me and he goes, "What's going on there? Like, why is she swinging it like a natural at 6 years of age?" So yeah, it's obviously haven't looked back since then, but I did play a lot of other sports growing up and I think that was the cool thing about living in New Zealand, like sports is really accessible and I was able to do that. Um, but yeah, it was definitely ingrained in me at a young age, not because anyone in my family played it. I just think there was a good wee junior program out at Kaiapoi Golf Club where I grew up, and I just joined there and loved it.
Awesome. And were there any sort of influential figures that you had, coaches at Kaiapoi or members that sort of helped you along the way on your early journey?
Yeah, I was coached by Jason Tilley all the way through to I was about 14. And the club captain at Kaiapoi, who's basically like my other granddad now, Tom Whitaker, and then just a great group of guys really that were a few years older than me that I grew up playing golf with. And I was 8 when I was playing with them, and they would make me tee off the men's tees, and I just kind of learned how to swing it as hard as I can and not really care about the result. And I still kind of like to play golf like that a little
Yeah.
bit. So that's definitely what shaped me as a player. But yeah, I still keep in touch with everyone back there, which is really nice.
That's fantastic. And you mentioned playing other sports. I know you're a footballer up into your teens. At what point did it become okay, golf or everything else sort of discussion for you and a decision had to be made?
Yeah, I actually remember this conversation that I had with my dad. It was on the soccer field. after a match on like a Saturday. I was probably 14 and I was training like 4 times a week because I'd been selected for like a New Zealand training academy type thing for soccer. And then I was also playing, well, I was on the New Zealand Academy for golf too. And I just remember my dad coming up to me and being like, all right, I think you're gonna have to slow one down. Like we can't be, well, I feel like they didn't have enough time to be taking me to all these trainings. And I knew straight away what I wanted to do. I think I was already traveling internationally with with Golf New Zealand and was getting a lot of opportunities through them. And unfortunately, like in the female side of sports, golf was definitely like the clearer career pathway to be able to take. And then obviously looking at going to university in the States too. So I missed soccer, but I continued to play high school football all the way through to year 13. Um, but yeah, I've never regretted the decision that I made there.
Amazing, amazing. Okay, so we've now sort of established a little bit of your background with your Manchester and your English roots, and you have just said that you've been traveling around with Golf New Zealand, so you're a certified Kiwi in that sense. But I would like to play just a little game of this or that just to make entirely sure. So I'll give you two things, and you can choose between them. There's a bit of a Kiwi theme for one and a bit of a English theme for another. So if you're up for it, we'll dive in.
For sure.
Awesome. Okay, first one, LMP or Ribena?
I love both, but I'll go with LMP.
Okay, that's a good start. That's a great start. Marmite or Vegemite?
None.
None? Okay, fair enough. Yeah,
None.
controversial one, controversial one. That's a pretty
Yeah.
good answer. The Sky Tower or Big Ben?
Oh, I actually I saw Big Ben yesterday, but yeah, I have to go with Big Ben there.
Oh, okay, all right, that's not bad. All right, pretty even split so far. Big one here, Lord or Ed Sheeran?
Lord.
Lord, nice.
Hmm.
Shortland Street or Coronation Street?
Grew up watching Coro, so it has to be
Oh,
Coronation
I, I'm
Street.
I'm not even gonna hate for that one. I think that's fair, to be honest. And one more as a bonus question. Being from Manchester and being a footballer, I'm hoping you'll have an opinion on this one. United or City?
United.
Yes.
I used to have Fred the Red as my head cover on my bag.
Oh, outstanding. Oh, that is brilliant. Okay.
Although, yeah, need to go put my red sweater on now.
Yeah, brilliant. You're a certified legend. That's fantastic. Thank you so much for being game to play. You did fantastically.
No worries.
Awesome. And so back to New Zealand, and you've now sort of made a decision that you wanted to focus on golf after being in the academy and things like that. Was there any kind of moment where you thought, all right, I'm good enough at this, I'm gonna give this a red hot crack and sort of try and make a life out of this?
Yeah, I think I qualified for my first New Zealand Open when I was 13, and it was down in Christchurch at Clearwater Golf Club. And I think once I was in and amongst it with the professionals and seeing how like that week was like I'll remember that week for the rest of my life. And it's weird now that I that was a European tour event, and sometimes I'm playing out here and I like try and remember what it was like as a 13-year-old and how big it felt for me. And now that I'm getting to do this every week, like it definitely puts things in perspective when I'm out here. But that was definitely like the turning moment for me. Like when I think about it now, the fact that I was playing that when I was 13 is crazy. And like if I saw a 13-year-old out here this week, I'd be like, what's going on, you know?
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I just remember just thinking how cool it would be to do this for your job every week. And obviously Lydia was a big influence on that, and like the crowds that we used to get at New Zealand Open were amazing. And yeah, I think I shot 78 first round, like for a 13-year-old, like it's respectable. So I knew I could end up being able to compete with these girls one day. So yeah, that was definitely the week for sure that I went, okay, this is what I want to do, and I'm not gonna look back.
That's a fantastic story. Thank you so much for sharing that. That's really, really cool. And then sort of, I guess in like 2016, 17, you start picking up a couple of wins. You won New Zealand stroke play and the Muriwai Open. While it's certainly not the be all and end all for any sport, but particularly golf, we see how long people's careers can be before they take off. How important do you think it was early on in your career to get a little bit of a taste of victory and know that you can compete and beat these other players?
Yeah, for sure. I think being able to, it took me a while to win. I think I was in and amongst the scene of New Zealand golf for a while and was never able to really get over the line. And I think winning the Muriwai Open was huge for me. And then I think that year I kind of ended up winning a few more. And it was right before I was deciding whether I wanted to go off to college or not. And there wasn't really that many people from New Zealand that were doing the university route before I went over there. So to be able to win back home and in New Zealand, and then I won in Australia once as well. To be able to do that going into making a decision whether I wanted to go over to college in America, I think was a big deciding factor. Um, but yeah, I mean, the the circuit that the Charles Tour that they had when I was playing and growing up, it was awesome to be able to feel like you were at a world-class event, in your home country. And the courses were set up great and just be able to get that feeling of people coming out to watch you in a final round and to know what it was like before going overseas was really awesome.
Yeah, yeah, fantastic. I mean, yeah, having done a bit of work around those Charles Tour events, it really is like a first class operation that is run, and it's great to hear you say that it played a role in your development because that's
Mm.
something that's seriously important for that tour. I do want to talk about college in a second, but it's kind of perfect timing for me to ask this question. Later on today, we're going to be announcing our World Amateur Teams squads for the Espirito Santo and Eisenhower Cup. And as a New Zealand rep yourself, while we don't have like a national team per se, how important and how much did it mean to you to pull the fern on and to represent New Zealand, at some of these events?
Yeah, I mean, the experience I had before I turned professional, I think, through being with Golf New Zealand, I felt like I had a lot more experience than a few players in college and in America because I've been able to travel overseas with a team manager and obviously come through the Golf New Zealand Academy. And you're being taught so much more than just how to swing a golf club, right? Like, I remember Liz would go through how to map a course, how to play practice rounds, and just kind of having that mentality from, talking to Jay Carter and all the stuff we did at these academies and learning. Like, I know when I was younger, it was like, oh, I don't really want to hear this. Like, I just want to go play golf. But once I started to become a lot more serious about the game and I realized that I had a lot more of like a higher golf IQ than a lot of other girls because I've been exposed to a lot of this. Whereas, in America, these girls, they're just traveling with their parents the whole time and they don't really get a chance to get the development that we were able to have as part of the Golf New Zealand team. And then I remember playing my first Espirito Santo. I think I only played one. Um, but just yeah, getting to come up against the best golfers in the world. Even like the Queen Surrogates and stuff, like getting the verse, they're probably major winners now, the girls that I was playing against back then. And it just exposes you to a lot more than playing college golf or stuff that you're able to do on your own.
Yeah, I can understand exactly where you're coming from. Was down at a talent development camp a few weeks ago, and honestly, half of the work they were doing, there were no clubs, no balls involved. It's classroom
Yeah.
stuff and all of those things outside of swinging a club that are actually just so important for young golfers, for any golfers really. So it's very cool
Mhm.
to hear you say that. Now college. How, like, at what point does that become a realistic goal, and how did USC emerge as the place that you wanted to go and wanted to study and play golf at?
Yeah, I think I got pretty not lucky, but I went over and played the World Junior Championship in San Diego or something, and I had a few college coaches just follow me around there, and I guess word gets out between them, and I ended up having I think four or five universities to kind of like go and tour and have a choice between. Um, and I got pretty lucky. Like I had gone to Oklahoma State as my second to last school to visit. And then I knew I was going to USC right after, but I never thought they would offer me a full scholarship. Like this was a top three team in the country, great school. There's so many, people that get on the LPGA straight out of USC. I was like, well, they're probably going to offer me 50% and like it's a private school, no chance that that's happening. So I'd kind of like got Oklahoma State's hopes up a little bit. I was like, yeah, I think this is going to be the place for me. And then I go to USC the next day and they sit me down. They go, one of our girls has just turned pro who was a sophomore, so second year. So we've got a full scholarship available to you. Right away, I was like, I'm there. I think for me, my mum looks at me, she goes, I do not want you living in downtown LA. Like, we need to talk about this. But I think as a young girl coming from, small Christchurch and then just being exposed to being in LA, being at a top private school, and like knowing that so many of these girls go on to get their cards on the LPGA straight away, I just felt like that's what I needed, and I needed to be around, everyone at USC felt like they were there to be successful and to do something amazing. So yeah, I was just really drawn to it, and yeah, I honestly don't think I would have loved anywhere else more than I did there. Yeah.
And just how intense is the training and golf focus side of college life? Is there much time for you to be a regular student, or is it just golf, golf, golf?
Yeah, no, not at USC. Like we would practice during the weekday, so 5 days a week on the weekdays, and then we would have the weekends to ourselves, but like our qualifying was more intense than tournament rounds. Like we had at one point, so five people travel on the team to a tournament, and at one point we had six All Americans on our lineup. So like either week, one All American, which is, a great achievement, was not traveling. So no one was really taking weekends off. Like we were always there, practicing and playing rounds together on Saturday, Sunday. We would have a little time off during the off season that we were still doing class and stuff that we weren't playing golf to kind of enjoy like university life a little bit. But during season, like it was very full on and very intense, which again, like it's kind of what I needed. I needed a bit of discipline. I'd never really been exposed to that type of hard work. So to be, yeah, around a great eight players every week and two coaches every day, it was awesome.
Amazing, amazing. And then turning pro in 2021, how hard does the reality that, okay, I'm not a student anymore, I'm now a professional golfer, like how big of a moment was that for you?
Yeah, it was. I mean, I made my pro debut at a US Open. So that was tough in itself. I think I remember like putting my tee in the ground and my hands were shaking. Like I'd played a US Open the year before, but it was like no crowds during COVID. I was an amateur, didn't really expect much from it. And then I just finished my college career the week before, turned pro, was playing the US Open and didn't really know what I had ahead of me, I think. Coming out of college, I really don't think you know what to expect. Like you've got Q school coming up in a few months, and it was all just a weird period of time for me as well with COVID and not being able to go home. And the coaching situation was crazy. Like I was being coached by a guy in Australia and I hadn't been able to see him for ages because of travel restrictions. So yeah, it was a bit all up in the air, but I managed to get through stage one of Q school, uh, missed out in stage two, but played well enough to get my full Epson card and was really excited just to be able to have a tour to play on the next year. But yeah, as we'll talk about probably like professional ranks is so different to amateur ranks. And I think that was the biggest thing, like the stuff through Golf New Zealand. I didn't really have to use any of that in college. A lot of it was being done through my college coaches. Like they were doing, telling us how we were supposed to mark our yardage books. They were doing our whole schedule for the week. So then turning professional, I think that's really when I was able to go back to the stuff that I'd learned through Golf New Zealand and go, okay, this is how, and they were there for me through it all as well, to kind of fall back on and go, right, how should I be scheduling my weeks, my travel, my recovery, um, and practice plans and stuff like that.
Yeah, yeah, because I that was one thing I've sort of always wondered about is you go from this incredibly high sort of nurtured environment where a lot of things are taken care of, and then suddenly it's like bang, all right, here you go, go free and
Hmm.
try and prosper kind of thing. Epsom Tour, you played on the Epsom Tour for a while, and have read an interview in the past. You sort of just weren't making headway in terms of trying to get an LPGA card. Can you tell me a little bit about the decision to try go to Q school in Morocco and the Ladies European Tour? I believe your cousin had something to do with that.
Yeah, so Epson, it was great. Like I love the Epson tour. It's just a very hard tour to make a living on. I felt like I played some really good golf and just was never rewarded that much for kind of the standard of golf that I was playing. And the competition's great out there. But it's really hard to, I think my first 3 years, like I hardly cracked broke even, out there. And it's not a way to kind of live. And yes, it's enjoyable, it's a friendly tour, but my cousin he was caddying for me on Epsom Tour my second year full time. He ran into some visa issues on my third year and he ended up having to leave for like 6 or 7 months and he came and caddied on the LET. Um, and he just, I mean, we had a conversation about it and he was like, look, I really think you'll love it out here. Obviously, I've got Manchester as a base, and he said the courses I feel like will reward you a little bit more than out in America, and I do agree with that. And then he was like, obviously, financially as well, it's a lot better tour. Like you're playing for more money, and can play yourself your way into majors and $2 million purses. So. Yeah, I just kind of went, all right, if I don't get my card through through Epson this year, I'll definitely play LETQ school no matter what. And it's still a big decision. Like it's a big investment to go over to Morocco at the end of your season. I think I spent 17 days there because it's 2 weeks of qualifying. Um, but yeah, I went over, played really, really good golf for both weeks and managed to get my full card and was just really excited to just have a change of scenery this year. I think doing what would have been 4 years on the Epsom tour, it would have got to me a little bit with doing the same travel every week and going to the same places. So I do think I've enjoyed myself a lot more out here.
Yeah. And playing in Europe, I've always wondered about this. Like you changing countries between events. Like how on earth do you like, literally change countries and then go and play golf and then boom, pack your bags and on to the next one? How do you manage all that travel and disruption that there must be for everyone
Yeah.
around you?
There's been so many times where I forget what country I'm in. I think this week is the 14th country of the year. But also like we've been to 5 continents as well. So that's been the biggest learning curve. I think But I think for me as well, like the fact that I'm not a rookie, like yeah, I'm a rookie on the LET. I think I've learned that it's not about quantity. Like I remember my rookie year on Epsom Tour, I was trying to play 18 holes, 18 holes, 18 holes practice round, like was out there all day trying to learn every inch of the course. And like now I've learned that I literally just need to see the course once. Well, play the course once, and if I want to see it twice, I'll go and walk it and spend 2 hours out there rather than 5.5 in a practice round. So it's just like, all right, you just need to listen to your body. And I've learned that even before I got out here on this tour. So it hasn't been too bad at all. I mean, the 20-hour flights do suck, but it's nice to be able to show up, in South Africa rather than Kansas. Not that there's anything wrong with Kansas, but the travel to the places we've been to have been really enjoyable.
Yeah, amazing. And before we move on to a little bit more recent stuff, I have to say that so how I basically found out about you is when you made headlines in 2024 with what surely has to be the most insane round of golf of all time. A par, a birdie, eagle, albatross, and a hole in one round, and you sprinkled a couple of bogeys in there just for good measure. How much do you remember of that round? Was it kind of like, was it a blur where everything was just going crazy, or like, yeah, tell me a little bit about what on earth was going on with that round of golf.
Yeah, it was just like I was playing a mini tour event in Florida. I think it was 2 weeks before I was starting up on Epson last year, and I thought I'd played some pretty average golf the 3 rounds leading up to the final round. So I was like 8 shots going into the final round, and started out hot, made an eagle on the first, and then I get to the seventh hole, made a hole in one. And it was kind of, I think it was, what was it? Yeah, we were doing like our scores online ourselves. So like I obviously like flick a text away to my friends going like, hole in one, like see you in the clubhouse kind of thing. And then I get to like what is it, the 13th or the 14th, and I'm kind of like down a hill on a par five and I can't really see the green, but one of my playing partners is standing up on the top of the hill. And I hit this shot and I knew it was like looking good. And then she looks back at me and she goes, I'm gonna faint. I go, are you okay? She goes, you just hold out again for albatross. And I'm like, no, you're taking the piss, right? This is not happened. And then obviously I went up there, it was in the hole, and I think then like all the people that work for the tour started to come out, and like my proudest moment was making par on the next hole because I was kind of like, what is going on? And then before I finish my round, I get news that this is like never happened in the history of golf before. So made a bogey on a par five on 17, I think, from like 60 yards, but birdied my final hole, so tied it off nicely. But yeah, honestly, I still don't think like I realized how big that was. And I don't think I ever will. But yeah, it happened and I don't know how.
Yeah, I mean, it's something ridiculous like 1 in 4 trillion chance or something like that. Like it's
Yeah. There's
like
been so many different numbers.
yeah, exactly. I think yeah, like mathematicians probably don't have a number yet for exactly how insane that is. So thank
Yeah.
you very much for sharing that experience because it honestly still blows my mind even to this day. So this year, on let and you're making cuts steadily. You have a couple of placings in the 20s, and then I think it was Tenerife. It just starts to click. You get a top 10, and then in the space of like 4 weeks, a whole bunch of third placings, and you just start to really get this roll on. What was it for you that clicked? Was it something that you'd been working on, or like, did everything just sort of come together?
Yeah, no, there's definitely so before Tenerife, they played an event at where they play the Evian Championship. So we had an event there. And if I played that, it was going to be like my fifth event in a row, and I would only have 1 week off instead of two. And apparently, like Evian is kind of like a love-hate track. It's on the side of a hill, and obviously the views are great. But I just spoke to my caddy, who's my cousin, and was kind of like, I'm not really like fully happy with the way I'm playing. Like I was playing decent, but would just be letting a few shots here or there around get away from me a little bit. So we go, okay, I'm gonna take this week off. And I'd worked with a coach in Manchester a few years ago when I the week before I came runner up in the British Am. So I knew this guy and I'd kind of been coachless for a while. And I was like, all right, I want to go and see this coach while I'm in Manchester for the 2 weeks. So we went back and just like grinded as hard as I could for 2 weeks straight with Scotty Howarth, who he's coaching me now. And it wasn't like a big change, but I think as my professional career's gone on, I've tried to almost like force hitting fades. I think it was kind of like it was a big popularity thing for a long hitter to have to hit a fade and have control over your ball right, left, right. Like, but like my natural shape is a draw. And he just goes, all right, why don't and this was something I'd kind of worked with Rodney Yee a little bit back home in Christchurch through the off season this year. So anyway, I was like, all right, we're gonna go back to this. And I managed to make some changes and it didn't feel great like going into Tenerife. I was a little bit nervous. I was kind of hitting it everywhere a little bit. And then I get to Tenerife and was just like put up a good week that week. And as the weeks went on, it just started to feel even more comfortable, even more comfortable. And I just wasn't getting two-way misses like I had the whole start of the year. Um, and yeah, obviously, like golf is a confidence game as well. Like, I think you can say that you should be able to play without confidence too, which is correct. But I think once you can prove to yourself that you can put up these numbers and you go from all right, I'm getting into, final few groups on a weekend and getting the feel for it a little bit. You want to get back there and you don't want to be just making cuts and, grinding away. So, yeah, it was a great stretch. And obviously now I feel like I've been able to compete under quite a bit of pressure too. Like I know Ireland, like I was coming up against a really good field too, and I managed to put up a great number in the final round. So like I know it's there. It's just a matter of time to hopefully get that first win out here. Um, but yeah, game's feeling as good as it ever has.
Outstanding, brilliant to hear. And during, you go on this little bit of a run, you're into the Open, having, as you said, you made your pro debut at the US Open, so you're not a stranger. How did the experience of Women's Open and US Open compare in terms of like the feel? I mean, obviously the courses are different and the conditions and things like that, but yeah, how different was that experience for you playing it at the Open recently?
Yeah, I think it was kind of my first major. So this was my fifth major. It was my kind of first one that I haven't been nervous on the range warming up. So that was a good start. And then got to play a practice round with, some great names. Got to play nine with Lydia, and I just felt a lot more comfortable out there last week, and like compared to what I have in the past at these big events, and just felt like I belonged a little bit more out there, which was really nice. But yeah, links courses are obviously a different type of golf, and um, just wasn't able to take advantage of kind of my length a little bit last week. Like, just found myself in a few bunkers that was having to chip out sideways which from not bad drives. Like the fairways are pretty tight, to be fair, and it was probably 10 yards off my intended line, so it wasn't a lot of them weren't bad drives. But yeah, I got a 3:15 p.m. tea time for my first round at the Open. So it was always kind of gonna I was always kind of gonna be on the back foot there. But I was really proud of the way I played last week, in the conditions that I had. So it was definitely a different test to a US Open though to play a proper links course and 30-mile-per-hour winds at times. Um, but yeah, it's weird to come out to a course this week where like your 8 irons stopping dead after it bouncing 40 yards last week.
Yeah. Brilliant, brilliant. I'm a little conscious of our time here. I don't want to keep you for too much longer, but I did want to ask you about sort of generally the state of the women's game. I mean, it is just insanely competitive out there. Nelly Corder has finally been unseated by Geno Titicul as world number one after a long reign. You have players like Lottie Wode coming out and winning as an amateur and then winning on their first start as a pro. How do you feel the women's game as a competitor in it? Does it just seem like there's a never-ending list of amazing players just waiting to come along and light the place up?
Yeah, no, I think it's amazing. Like I think women's golf is finally starting to get the recognition it deserves, and I think the more kind of superstars that we have, the better it is for our game and going forward. Like, obviously, it makes it tougher as a player, like when the depth of talent is so deep. But to know that, all of these girls are very young as well. Like, there's not a lot of veterans that are kind of topping the tables anymore. So, it's just a cool sport to be in at the moment. And I think as well, like I remember in high school, I was always a little bit like embarrassed to say that I played golf. And I know that I was kind of like, oh, well, like, why do you play golf? Like, who do you go and play with? And I was like, yeah, I go and play with old men on the weekends usually. But now it's like it's a cool game, and I think like all my friends my age back home are playing it now, and it's just an amazing sport to be a part of, and to know that it's growing and growing and growing is, yeah, it's really nice.
Awesome, fantastic. Amelia, thank you so much for giving up part of your evening to speak with me. You've been fantastic. All the best for your future endeavors. We'll be cheering from the Golf New Zealand offices back home, and we wish you well.
Thank you, Will. Cheers.
Awesome.